In a palace where silence is survival, and every veil hides a name once stolen. There lives a maiden the world has forgotten, but the past has not. Between glowing scrolls and whispered poems, a forbidden storm begins to gather. Love will approach like rain. Secrets will burn like ink. And in the hollow pavilion, a voice once silenced will rise. Welcome to Maiden of the Pavilion. You are watching the Velvet Story. Chapter 4, Lanterns in the Rain. From the story, Maiden of the Pavilion. The storm came without warning. Not a dramatic roar, but a soft, creeping rain. The kind that slips between roof tiles and soul cracks. The kind that arrives with memories. By dusk, the hollow pavilion was wrapped in mist. Plum branches bent under the weight of rain, their blossoms falling like tiny, exhausted hearts. Ruin stood by the scroll shelves, lighting small lanterns one by one. Their veil clung to their cheek, damp at the edges. Outside, thunder murmured. Inside, the door creaked open, and Kyan stepped in. Soaked to the bone, but still somehow composed. The guards wouldn't let me return to my quarters, he said, brushing water from his shoulders. They said the palace paths were flooded. He paused, eyes catching Ruin's veil, not yet removed. A line of wetness ran down beneath the fabric. Not quite rain. Kyan stepped further in, his voice lower. You don't have to say anything. But I'll ask just once. Will you let me stay? Ruin didn't move. Then, a slow nod. And that simple nod changed everything. The pavilion was small, too small for two strangers to pretend to be strangers. The air held silence, but not comfort. Kyan sat across from Ruin, near the scrolls, unarmed, unguarded. His eyes flickered across the lantern light to where Ruin was carefully drying the tablecloth with silent gestures. You care for this place like it's a person, he murmured. Like someone you're afraid to lose. No answer, only the whisper of brush against fabric. Then, Kyan said something unexpected. Do you want to know what the first letter I ever wrote said? Ruin looked up, startled, intrigued. Kyan's gaze softened. It said, I am not afraid of being lonely. I am afraid of staying unseen. He turned away then, almost embarrassed by his own confession. Strange thing to tell a stranger, isn't it? But Ruin reached quietly for their ink and brush. Their fingers hesitated, not over what to write, but over whether to let him see. In the end, they wrote just 4 words. You are not unseen. Kyan read them. His breath caught. For a moment, the silence pulsed like a heartbeat between them. Then, lightning. A white slash across the paper window. The candle flared, then died. In the darkness, Kyan's voice returned, barely audible. Are you afraid of thunder? No answer. But Ruin's hands trembled. Kyan stood, slowly. May I sit closer? A nod. He moved near, close enough to feel the scent of rain in his hair, of dried plum and smoke. The first time I saw you, he said, I thought, this is not someone I will forget. He did not touch, did not reach, only sat, still, present. Minutes passed, maybe hours. And then, in the hush that followed the thunder, Ruin whispered, so softly the words almost vanished. I was never taught to be wanted. Kyan froze. He turned. But Ruin had already risen and stepped away, veil lowered again, voice folded back into silence. Kyan didn't chase, only whispered in return. Then let me be the first lesson. The next morning, the rain stopped. But one blossom, just one, had fallen onto the pavilion's steps and remained unbroken. Ruin picked it up and placed it inside their journal. Next to the poem. Next to Kyan's scent. Next to the words. You are not unseen. End of chapter 4. Chapter 5, The Secret Drawer. From the story, Maiden of the Pavilion. The rain had left the pavilion softer, quieter. Moss bloomed between floorboards. Even the scrolls seemed to exhale in relief. But peace never stays long in the Imperial archives. That morning, Ruin found an empty scroll tube tucked beneath the mat where Kyan had sat. No seal, no name, only a scent, charcoal and camellia. And inside, just a single phrase, written backwards, a cipher from a vanished dialect. The eyes are watching through the screens. Ruin's hands trembled. The brush clattered against the inkstone. Someone was warning them. But who? Before they could think further, the sliding doors groaned open. Minister Jian. Again. But this time, he didn't shuffle. He strode. "I've come to inspect the pavilion," he said. "A diplomat sent to read our bones? A veiled scholar with no voice? It all smells like smoke hiding a fire." He moved through the room, touching things with careless fingers. His jade rings tapped against lacquered boxes. A warning with every sound. Ruin bowed deeply, too deeply, hoping to stall him. "Is this your ledger?" he asked, lifting the edge of Ruin's private journal. Ruin stepped forward sharply, still silent, but the intensity of the movement stopped Jian's hand midair. He raised an eyebrow, curious. "For someone mute, your fear speaks volumes." He withdrew, but not before adding, "Tell your visitor this pavilion isn't as private as it pretends to be." And he was gone. That night, Lingwa entered through the garden path, breathless, cheeks flushed, her hands cold. "I heard something," she whispered. Jian's aides were speaking near the West Hall. "They think Kayan isn't just here for documents. They think he's trying to find the lost white letter." Ruin froze. The white letter. A myth. A dangerous one. Said to be written by a royal concubine on her deathbed, revealing an affair with a southern prince and a secret heir. If true, it could dissolve dynasties. They say it might be hidden here. "In your pavilion," Lingwa whispered. "They'll search. Soon." She hesitated, then added. "Do you trust him?" Ruin said nothing. Lingwa only nodded. "I hope he deserves it." And she left a satchel by the door, food, tea, and, curiously, a silk ribbon. "If you're going to run," she said, "do it with grace." Later, Kayan returned. This time, he was quiet. Too quiet. Even his smile was slow, unreadable. "You found it, didn't you?" he asked. "The scroll I left." Ruin didn't answer, but Kayan stepped closer. "They're coming, Ruin. Not just for me, for you." He held something out, not a letter, not a gift, but a small brass key. "The bottom drawer of the pavilion. You've never opened it, have you?" Ruin hadn't. It was locked. Forgotten. Their predecessor had died before telling them its purpose. Kayan looked straight at them. "What's inside will explain why they keep you veiled." A silence passed. Rain again, soft against the roof. Ruin took the key, but they did not open the drawer. Not yet. They looked at Kayan, not with suspicion. Not quite, but with a question. "What are you not telling me?" Kayan lowered his gaze. "That I knew your name before I ever walked into this room." That night, after he left, Ruin held the key in their palm until it grew warm. They placed it in the same hidden fold as the pressed blossom, next to the ledger, next to the letter, next to their own unfolding heart. And then they whispered again, aloud, barely. "I don't know if I want the truth, or just to be seen." End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. The Drawer Beneath the Lantern. From the story, Maiden of the Pavilion. The key was smaller than Ruin expected. Delicate, almost ornamental, like it was never meant to be used. But its weight in their palm felt ancient. Heavy with history. For 2 days, they did not touch the drawer. Not because of fear, but because they knew, once opened, things would never return to stillness. On the third morning, they waited until the pavilion was empty. Even Lingwa had not yet arrived. The paper lanterns swayed above, one of them faintly torn, like a breath had passed too close. Ruin knelt at the base of the scroll cabinet, the drawer just behind a false panel. A place no one looked. A place even the dust dared not settle. They slid the key in, turned once, and the lock gave a gentle sigh. Inside, a folded letter tied with red thread, a mirror with the silver edge worn down, and a small enameled brooch, shaped like a lotus in mid-bloom. Ruin unwrapped the letter. It was not addressed, but it began, "To the child who remembers too well." The words were written in a hand both familiar and unknown. Half fluid, half broken. They said you were born without a cry. That the nurses feared you were spirit touched. But I saw something else. You looked at me, newborn, and I knew you were carrying too much. They took your name from the records. To protect you. From them. From the ones who tried to erase the mother as well. I had to leave the pavilion. But I left pieces for you. This brooch was mine, once hidden beneath royal silk. You are not nameless, my child. You are the daughter of the 9th concubine. Your name is Aryu Lan. Ruin read it again. And again. The name burned. Not because it was wrong, but because it felt right. Like a sound the body had long forgotten how to echo. Aryu Lan. Orchid Dew. No wonder Minister Jian watched so closely. No wonder the wail, the records, the isolation. She had blood that once sat near the imperial pillow. And memory that could ruin the game boards of men in power. As the morning light softened the paper walls, a figure approached the pavilion. Kayan. But Ruin did not rise to greet him. They were still holding the brooch, the lotus, in open hands. Kayan paused at the threshold, eyes falling to the object. You opened it. Not a question. A truth acknowledged. Ruin looked at him now with eyes unshielded. Not with accusation. Not yet. But with clarity. You knew, they whispered. About the 9th concubine. Kayan hesitated. I suspected. Not the whole. Not until I saw the way you read the sealed letters, not like ink, but like memory. You don't translate them. You remember them. He stepped closer, rain glistening in his sleeves. Ruin. They stood. Aryu Lan. That's my name. Kayan blinked. Then smiled, not with surprise, but something else. Then say it again. She did. And for the first time, her voice did not sound borrowed. Later, after Kayan left, Lingwa arrived, silent, careful. She found Aryu Lan sitting beside the opened drawer, fingers stained with dust and ink. Is it true? She asked. Aryu Lan nodded. Lingwa sighed, and then knelt before her. Then let me tell you what I know, about your mother. And so it began. One veil lifted, dozens more yet to come. End of chapter 6. In the world of courts and shadows, even the softest voice can shift dynasties. If Ruin, or Aryu Lan, taught us anything today, it's that to be seen is sometimes more dangerous than to be hidden. But also, far more powerful. Cherry blossom if you felt the hush between the thunder. If her words stayed with you, then this story is already yours, too. Subscribe to the Velvet Story for more whispered fates, veiled hearts, and stories that bloom in silence. Until next time, let your silence speak volumes.